Hello and welcome to another Minecraft Bedrock Edition tutorial by me, FoxyNoTail, here on the Bedrock Edition of the game. We're in a super flat world and today we're going to be looking at clocks, or Redstone clocks for the Bedrock Edition of Minecraft. Now, we've got lots of different clocks here. These aren't by any means all of the available clocks on the Minecraft game, but these are like the common ones I tend to use. And first of all, we're going to look at this area here and look at how fast we can fire dispensers. So we're looking for speed and reliability is the key. Then we'll move over to these ones here for a different type of clock later on. So first of all, we're going to start with the most simple clock, which is this basically dispenser clock. It's two dispensers facing into each other, and you can use that for a variety of things, but as a dispenser, it fires pretty quickly. As you can hear there, that's firing relatively quickly, and if we put some items inside there, you'll see they fire out relatively quickly as well. Now, this is a great little clock if your world isn't corrupted, and what I mean by that is that observers can very easily start breaking in basically corrupted chunks, or chunks that have a lot of pending tick data. You'll notice that observers over time will start to slow down, they'll lock up, they'll miss things, and occasionally you'll come to your redstone device and you'll find that that's completely stopped. The dispenser's just not firing anymore because the observers are no good. So these are fast, but pretty much unreliable, and if you want to make those on and offable as well, you can do just by using a piston like that to push the observers into place. So that's pretty good, but relatively unreliable for the Bedrock Edition of Minecraft. Now, another really popular clock I see quite a lot on other people's channels is this thing, which is basically a really super fast comparator clock. When we flick that lever, you can see how fast that's going, and effectively, if we was to put a dispenser in front of that, that should fire really quickly. Now, it depends on the world, it depends on the chunk, and it depends on the layout of your system whether this will actually work. And you'll see it for both of these, neither of them actually work. We get one tick and then nothing. The dispenser won't fire, it's ticking too quickly. Now, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. I haven't figured out what makes it work and what makes it not work, but yeah, they're not working for me in this particular world, in this particular setup. So those are fast if you can get them working, but very much unreliable. So let's go over here. What have we got here is basically a comparator clock that's actually reading the dispenser output, which is pretty useful. So if we just use one repeater like this, we can get those relatively quickly, and if we stick another repeater there like that, we can have that actually firing out the items that's in that dispenser, and it will stop running after the clock has finished. If you just want that as a clock that's continually going, just take that repeater away, leave the dispenser like that, and that clock will never stop, and you can stop and start it with a lever there. Very similar thing here, exactly the same thing, but a few blocks less, just using that design there. Again, we can make that dispenser fire, we just need a block there like that and the redstone just on top of that. Then all we need is to put a couple of items inside there, and that's going to keep firing like that, or we can just leave it with the items in and that clock will run forever, again on and off with that lever there. And this is exactly the same thing here, but this one's a little bit slower and there's a little bit more control. If you wanted to really slow your clock down, just stick another repeater in there and you can really slow that one down. So all three of these are absolutely great. They're very reliable, they won't break, they won't lag out on broken or corrupted chunks. They're going to be absolutely great for making dispensers fire or whatever else you want to do with them. They're easily on and offable with levers, and you can also on and off them with other things as well. If you have this as part of your redstone contraption and you don't have room to get a lever in there, you could put a sticky piston with a redstone block on there and basically stop and start that with that. You could have that as part of your setup, and you could basically just stop and start it that way. So they're really, really flexible and easy to use, but relatively slow. Then we've got just a standard repeater clock here, which is two repeaters with a redstone torch. That's relatively fast. You've got a reasonable amount of control for speed there of what you want to do. The only downside to these ones is you're always going to get the redstone output the same length as your repeater delay, so you don't get a pulse in output. So they're pretty good for just standard clock stuff, but if you need a pulse in output, they're no good, and you can do that as well with just one repeater as well, like that with a redstone torch. So they're pretty useful. And then we've got a redstone burnout clock, which will actually fire the dispenser, but because it's a burnout clock, the redstone torch will actually burn out. So you'll get a quick burst of items being fed through that dispenser. If we chuck those in there like that and flick that on and off again, you'll see they fire out really nice and quickly. But again, not very reliable because it burns out. Now, These clocks I really love. I use these clocks all the time, and these are basically sticky pistons with redstone blocks on the top and a little bit of redstone dust next to them. And the thing I like about these is you can actually inset them into the floor like that, and you will make a really fast clock. So that's just going to keep going up and down like that, and you could have a dispenser next to it and it's going to fire. The other thing that's good about these clocks is you can actually have them like as a flip-flop type thing. So you can have them fire out of one and then the other one alternately, which is actually really useful for some redstone devices. If you've got things that need to be alternated, then you can fire off the top one and then fire off the bottom one in an alternating fashion, but very quickly, which is great. They're really, really good. And basically, yeah, you can make them on and offable with a lever as well. These also work horizontally. They don't just need to work vertically. You can do it like that. And again, you could have your dispenser just at the end of that there, and that's going to fire whenever the redstone block touches it. So they're really good. Now you can also use these really, really quickly with an observer. If we put a dispenser there and fill that full of items and turn that on, that observer is going to fire every time that redstone block comes in front of it and then disappears again. So it's effectively firing twice for each up and down stroke. So you get a really, really fast dispenser output. Now again, these are relatively reliable unless you're having problems with your chunks. If you are having PendingTick issues with your chunks, and if you don't know what I mean, I did a video on it recently with a bug report which I'll link to in the description below. Yeah, the dispensers can end up just locking up and you don't get any output, so the light will just either stay on or it will stay off. But providing your chunks are healthy and your world is okay, then yeah, these are absolutely amazing for anything like water elevators or just fast transferring items. They're great. The other thing we could do here is we could use droppers, and we could have droppers coming along like that with redstone dust along the top there like that, and then we can actually transfer those items really quickly along the whole thing just like that and have the whole thing running. That's absolutely amazing. They're really, really useful, really, really brilliant designs. If you are having problems with this because of the observer, if your observers are glitching, you can do exactly the same thing with this design here, but it will just be a bit slower. So again, if we just put a bunch of droppers in a row there and put some redstone dust along the top like that, don't actually need the redstone dust on the very last one. We put some items in there and turn that one on, you'll see you'll get exactly the same thing. It's just a little bit slower. It's half as slow. It's twice as slow. That's what I mean. Right, so that's all of those things which are really good for activating redstone components such as dispensers and pistons and all sorts of other stuff that you might want to work out with your contraptions. The other types of clocks there are, which I use quite regularly, are these ones. So this one is basically an Etho hopper clock, and what it does, it's got two hoppers here which have got items feeding into each other. If we look there are some items, it doesn't matter what those items are, feeding from one to another. When they all get into the other hopper, the redstone block switches across like that, and then you get an output going to the other side. So how you would use this is you would have a line of redstone coming out from that redstone block, and that would activate something after a certain amount of time. The more items you put in this, the longer the delay will last, and the less items that you've got in there, the shorter it will last. So you can have this going relatively quickly. You can have that going actually really quick like that, or you can have it taking absolutely ages by filling it up with items. Now, it won't last forever. I think the maximum you can get with these is about 5 minutes, maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that. But the other thing you could do is you could also have the signal coming out of the other side as well and double up on that. Okay, so the last clock we're going to come to is this one, which is actually allows you to create a really, really long delay before it gives an output, up to 48 hours in 5-minute intervals. And the way this one works is every item inside a dispenser will give a delay of 5 minutes. So you actually need an extra item as well because of the way this works, but ignoring the first item, every item after that will give you a 5-minute delay. So one item is 5 minutes, 2 items is 10 minutes, 3 items is 15 minutes, 4 items 20 minutes, and 12 items is an hour. So technically it's 13 items, but 12 items gives you the full hour, and after that full hour, this redstone torch will go on. And the way it works is basically we flick that lever off, an item will drop onto that pressure plate, which basically will despawn after 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, that will despawn and it will spit another one out. And after 5 minutes, that one will despawn and it will spit another one out. And once this dispenser is completely empty, that comparator will stop sending a signal through that block and that redstone torch will come on, which means we can then connect that to something else. So if you want a timer for an hour or 2 hours, all the way up to 48 hours, you can just put as many items as you want in there and that will torch will eventually go on once all those items have run out. Obviously, you need to stay in the area where this is loaded. If your simulation distance is on 4 chunks, which most worlds are, I think that's by default, then you need to stay within 4 chunks of this to keep it active. But if you're AFK somewhere and you know that you want something to stop or start after a certain amount of time of AFK, you can use this sort of clock, and it's amazing, and it's very, very reliable. Even in dodgy chunks, it's really reliable. So there we go. That's all of the clocks I'm going to use today. There is a world download of this available in the description. If you want to download it and use any of these clocks yourself, you're more than welcome to. But for now, I'm going to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do please leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!